Bắt đầu buổi trưa mọi người.
Vô làm đi. Bắt đầu.
Okay, yeah.
Ok.
Okay, today our group 8 will present about what's the oligopoly. As you can see on the slide is the name of the member of our group. First lecture will be talk about oligopoly. First of all, before we talk about oligopoly, there's two questions that we need to answer. Can we move to the next slide? The two questions before we talk about the oligopoly is why is it difficult for oligopoly firms to cooperate, and how are antitrust laws used to foster competition? First of all, let's talk about the definition of oligopoly. Oligopoly is a market structure with a small number of firms, none of which can keep order from having significant influence. So, as you can see, it's quite different from monopoly. Is that monopoly is just one firm that dominates the whole section, while oligopoly is having more two or more firms that dominate the whole section. An example that we can look up is Coca-Cola and Pepsi. They dominate the section in soda beverage, soda drink, and why monopoly, for example, in Vietnam is power line that operate by government. So that's the basic difference between oligopoly and monopoly. So to sum up can we move to the next slide? Uh, as to sum up the definition is a handful oligopoly is a handful company control the entire market, and it's based on total number of players, and it determines the market share. The control concept is similar to monopoly as I talked about. So Ominoly would like to reach the monopoly outcome is price cooperation, which is difficult to establish and maintain. The problem that arises when cooperation among actors is desirable but difficult. So that's the basic definition about oligopoly. So to understand more, a member of my group will talk about other section we will know to about oligopoly.
So let me introduce you why and explain for you why it is really difficult to monopoly firm to cooperate with each other, even when cooperation would bring about a better collective outcome. The prisoner's dilemma is a potential example of a game analyzed in game theory that shows why two individuals might not cooperate, even if it appears that it is in their best interest to do so. So the game, I will introduce you quite briefly about the game. In the game, two members of a criminal gang are arrested and imprisoned. Each prisoner is in solitary confinement with no means of speaking to or exchanging messages with the other. The police offer each prisoner again three options. Next, please. Um, next, please. So if prisoner A and prisoner B both confess to the crime, each of them will serve 2 years in prison. And next is if A confess but B denies the crime, A will be set free while B will serve 3 years in prison. And maybe vice versa. So, and the last is if both A and B deny the round, both of them will only serve 1 year in prison. So, next please. For both players, the choice to betray the partner by confession has strategic dominance in this situation. It is the better strategy for each player regardless of what the other player does. This set of strategy is thus a Nash equilibrium. Um, in the game, no player would be better off by changing his or her strategy, and as a result, all poorly self-interested prisoners would betray each other, resulting in a 2-year prison sentence for both. This outcome is not Pareto optimal. It is clearly possible to improve the outcome for both players through cooperation. If both players had denied the RAM, they would each be serving only 1 year in prison. And this is a picture uh, so how this game operates. And next please. So similarly to the prisoner's dilemma scenario, cooperation is difficult to maintain in an oligopoly because cooperation is not the best interest of the individual players. However, the collective outcome would be improved if firms cooperated and were thus able to maintain low production, high price, and monopoly profits. And let me introduce you one traditional example of web theory and the reason dilemmas in practice involve sufferings. Coca-Cola and Pepsi compete in an oligopoly and thus are highly competitive against one another as they have limited other competitive threats. Considering the similarity of their products in the soft drink industry, any price deviation on part of one competitor is seen as an act of non-conformity or betrayal of an established status. And so this is my part. The next part is about my group member, Vinh Minh. Thank you.
So next we gonna know about what is the antitrust law and why the government has to impose the laws. So it's also now known as the competition law, and every country in the world has their own competition law. For example, in the U.S., they call the competition law is antitrust law. In the China and Russia, they call it the anti-monopoly law, and in the UK and Australia, they call them the trade practice law, and finally in the European Union, they both call it antitrust law and competition law. So, what is the antitrust law? So, the purpose of antitrust law is to protect the transaction and trade from unfair registration, monopoly, and price fixing. So, several business might come together to fix the price to promote, to maximize their profit. So the antitrust law was imposed to remove fair competition and protect the consumer, the benefit of the consumers. So how are antitrust law used to foster competition? So without the antitrust law, it will lead to the reduce of production efficiency and allocation efficiency. So this leads to the increasing in price, reducing production and non-radio use resources. For example, increasing in price mean when there's one firm only in the market, so they have to set the price in the highest to maximize their profit. So the consumer had to buy the product in a pretty really high price. The reduction in production is mean if there's just one firm in the market, so they cannot satisfy the demand of the whole market, and non-radio use in resources mean in the world is there is several resources. So if there's just one firm, they can use the resources optimally. The second reason is losing motivation in promoting new technology. For example, the Apple company, if they are the only firm in electric electronic device or gadgets, and so when they after releasing the iPhone 11 Pro Max, they will not um, develop any production because this might think that there's the only firm in the market, so that the consumer have no choice but buy their products, so they will stop promoting their products. So we can say that the competition is the environment and driving force for the develop of economic. Next is the unequal profit distribution. This leads to the increased income inequality. To be more specific, this means the people with a high income will be richer, and people who has a low income is will be more poorer. The last is the impact on political system to protect the monopoly power. For example, in Korean, they have some firms called Chaebol, and this firm included Samsung, Hyundai, LG, SK Group, and the last Lotte. And this firm was bring the Korean from a poor country which was ravaged by war to one of the largest new industrialized country. So the government, the authorities was let the firm play a really important role in policy. So next slide for me, please. So the antitrust law include the Sherman Act, was released in the US in 1890. So this is the federal law that prohibit monopoly in some business activity such as price fixing. The Clayton Act. This law is to prevent the mergers between firms which might lead to the oligopoly and unfair competition. So in the US, we have the Department of Justice. This is the federal law to enforce agency from agency are responsible for investigating and enforcing federal law. Next, we have the Federal Trade Commission. This is the federal agency to promote free trade and fair competition to protect the consumer from unfair competition tactics. So this is the last of my part, and next will be my member.
Okay. You have heard about price fixing during our presentation. So what does it mean? Price fixing is an agreement between participants on the same side in the market to buy or sell a product, service, or commodity only at a fixed price. or maintain the market conditions such that the price is maintained at a given level by controlling the supply and the demand. However, some firms abuse the price fixing market power to compete monopoly. I have three examples here. The first one is resale price maintenance. The firm required the retailers to charge at the price that the firm imposed. If any retailer charged less than that would violate its contract. And it seems like the resale price maintenance is anti-competitive because the policy believed that the resale price maintenance would prevent the retailers from competing price, which could lead to violation of the antitrust laws. And however, the economists claim that it is not aimed at reducing competition and it is a legitimate goal. The next one is predatory pricing. It means that the firms with market power charge the price that are too low, and normally um, the economists claim that it is rarely happen, and if ever, it is about a business profitable strategy. And the last one is tying. The firms produce two goods and sell them together at a single price rather than separately. The firm uses tying as a mechanism for expanding market power. Usually, one of two products is more worthless than the other. So, in short, all three types of price fixing are still skeptical arguments to the economists and policy. So, next part, Bunfu will help you to summarize the whole sections.
Okay, I'm gonna summarize all of the repetition is about and answer two questions, particularly like first one is why it's difficult for oligopoly firm to cooperate. Firstly, oligopoly, as is known that an economic market condition where many sellers and buyers in one market. As have said before, monopoly is only one seller. Meanwhile, perfect competition is lot of buyers and sellers, which means that oligopoly is in between them and have two or three sellers in one market. Uh, Oligopolies also maximize their total profit by forming a cartel and acting like a monopolist. Well, it's hard to cooperate because cooperation is not the best interest of individual players and is individually irrational. And the second question is how are antitrust law used to foster competition? We have known that antitrust law is also referred to as competition law that ensure the fair competition exist in an open market, which just means that to protect trade from unfair rules and price fixing. Foster compet to foster competition, the the policymakers prevent oligopolies, those oligopolies that reduce the competitions. And the application of this law can be controversial because some behavior that can appear to reduce competition may in fact have legitimate business purpose. So that is my part. So thank you for listening. Any question so far?
Thank you for listening. Là xong 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 chưa bà con?